My pleasure to call to order the regular meeting of the Village of Cache Creek, April the 15th, 2024. There's a notification that we proclaimed, or I proclaimed, April 14th to 20th as National Volunteer Week within the Village of Cache Creek. We do have a delegation, Mario Perotti from BDO Canada, to present regarding the 23 audited financial statements. It's all yours, Mario.
Excellent. Thank you, Worship, members of council. It is good to be back here to present the 2023 audited financial statements for the village. I guess I also need this to be able to be heard. Perfect. Okay, so you have in your agenda packages the full financial statements for the Village of Cache Creek, but I've prepared a brief PowerPoint just to make it easier to follow along, and we'll discuss the financial results for the village. But first, before we get to that, we have our independent auditor's report. And so, as of today, we are substantially complete on the audit. The last thing that we need before I can sign off is for Mayor and Council to approve the audit in accordance with requirements of the community charter. If it's Council's pleasure to approve the financial statements, we are issuing a clean audit opinion. So these statements do present fairly the results of the village for the year ended December 31st, 2023. And when we take a look at how the village did this year, we can see that your financial position did improve this year with 2023 on the left and 2022 on the right. We can see your financial assets increased from 4.7 million up to 7.2 million. Liabilities also did increase from 915,000 to 1.4 million. But if we look at the net of those two, we see your financial position improved from 3.8 up to 5.7 million. So an increase of 1.9 million. Now we're going to talk about that in a moment on how we got there, but again, that is a very positive result. You'll also notice, even though it's not on this slide, that included in your statement of financial position is a new line item called asset retirement obligations for just under $450,000. And this is a new accounting standard that came into place this year that requires all governments to track and record what the cost of decommissioning your assets at the end of life is going to be. And in your case, it is all asbestos remediation and water wells. There is no obligation that you have to go and spend this money tomorrow. It is at the end of life. As an example, the community hall in 2045 is when it's expected to be decommissioned. So it's just letting you know what's going to happen in the future. Now, when we look at how you actually did for this year, we do see your revenues did do quite favorable against budget. Just under 6 million, 5.998 million versus a budget of $5.4 million. And really, there's the two main areas where you have that green exceeding budget by quite a bit, and that's first your government transfers, so the grants that you receive. Of course, EMBC money was in there because of the flooding last year, but also we have the Growing Communities Fund for just over $900,000 that came in this year, which was unexpected from the province. The other item that I'll highlight is revenue from own sources. Favorable over budget by $100,000 and up $200,000 for last year, and that is all investment income that changed. And so while your cash position improved, management was very diligent in making sure that it was being put to work, whether it's high interest savings accounts, GICs, and so that $300,000 in investment income, very important to recognize as well. And when we look at the breakdown of revenues by source, you can see that, of that nearly $6 million, the green pie, green part of the pie is your taxation. 1.2 million is less than a quarter of what your total revenues are this year. Very dependent on grants in terms of your revenue source, even with the EMBC and the Growing Communities Fund, it still would have made up a significant portion of your revenue for the year. And when we look at your expenses, total expenses came in at 3.7 million versus a budget of 3.9 million. And we really have two major swings that you have. The first first, on the left, general administration. There were some staff vacancies in this year, which caused a favorable variance against budget. We also, though, see transportation protective services with the fresh up last year, significantly overspent on there, but again, EMBC money did come in to help cover that. And when we
It was
bring
the back door, there's nobody there.
I'm just gonna check the doors. Sounded like it opened.
So when we bring forward a $2.3 million annual surplus is where you ended up for the year versus 1.5 last year, and a budget of 1.45, which isn't on this slide. But as a reminder, you did budget for a balanced budget. And so this slide kind of gets us to how you did against your budget. And so if we take our annual surplus and deduct the capital projects that we had of $1 million, add back amortization, which is non-cash, we come to a net change of financial assets of 1.9 million versus last year at 994,000, and you actually budgeted a deficit of $358,000. So what that means, we say you budgeted a deficit of $358,000, it means that you were going to draw from reserves to fulfill your capital projects. In this case, you actually were underspent on your capital projects by 1.4 million, which is part of the reason why we ended up in this surplus position of 1.9. The other two items we talked about, we have the growing community funds and the investment income. Those two combined is 1.1 million of this $1.9 million change in your position. So again, it seems like a big number, but it's important to understand an unexpected grants of investment income and not being able to finish your capital because of circumstances this year. So again, you would have operationally very tight against your budget. It's the capital that you were off, and then also some extra grant money that came in. Now, the other part that we see on the statements that I wanted to briefly touch on is we talk about this accumulated surplus number, which is up to 21 million, 20.8 million to be exact. And last year you were at $18 million, and we look at it and go, well, that's a lot of money that we have to spend. Why are we, concerned about taxation and that? But it's important to understand that that $20 million of accumulated surplus is not all cash. And in fact, if we look at the top part of this slide, we have 2.4 million, which is sitting in our unrestricted funds, which is our general water sewer. That's what management has to spend in accordance with their approved budget. And when we think about it, your revenues this year were north of $6 million. And that's also understanding that you have significant capital up front ahead of you that you have to do. We then have reserves sitting at $3.8 million there that is cash available for certain projects. We do have the landfill legacy reserve, which hasn't changed in 3 years, hasn't been drawn on, which I think is fantastic, that is being preserved. But we also have Community Works Fund money of almost $1 million, 983,000, which is, you can only spend it on certain types of capital projects, so that is restricted in that 3.8. And this Growing Communities Fund, which again is meant to drive housing, so $935,000 there. So of this $20 million, only $6.2 million is actual cash that you have. The remainder is what we call invested intangible capital assets, which is $14.5 million. And that number represents, if we look at what you historically spent on all of your infrastructure, less any debt, which you don't have any, and less your asset retirement obligations, what is it there? It's like the equity in your house. That's not money that you can spend, it's not money that you can borrow against. So it's important to understand that we have a surplus of 21 million almost, but only just over 6 million is what you have for cash available. And to me, I'm actually quite pleased to see this number that's increased over the past few years. A number of years ago, we had the unrestricted funds were going negative in certain parts of the year. And now we also are identifying asset management as becoming more and more important and dealing with upgrading our infrastructure as it begins, before it begins to fail. And so we do need to have because of what the cost of all of our capital projects in the future are going to be. And so, I look at this and see there's been definitely a positive trend, and I want to encourage you to keep working towards building up your reserves as you continue to evolve in your asset management plans. The other item that I want to highlight for you is that I keep mentioning the asset management plans because of the fact that the province is actually tightening up the reporting on it and making sure that you have one, and also making sure that you're reporting on it. And starting in 2025, they will be doing data validations, and if you don't have quality data, you may not qualify for infrastructure funding from the province. So again, it's important to have these reserves set aside so that you can be dealing with asset management. Otherwise, the roads will start to crumble. And so, again, I'm encouraged by the results, but I wanted to give you a bit of context on why we have that there.
Can we get a copy of this slide?
Absolutely. Okay. So in terms of the results, that is what I had. Do you have any questions on the numbers themselves or anything that I didn't touch on within the financial statements?
Any questions for Mr. Parati? Seeing none? Thank you.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting.
You know, I would love to, but I do need to make my way back and start the second shift on the computer as well.
Yeah, no problem. I understand.
Yeah, okay, that's next. After the minutes. Take this guy here. Pop up on the screen. Yay.
Thanks, Mario.
Thank you, Mario.
I'll stay behind for a couple minutes, just wait for the motion and then we'll go down.
Yeah. Okay, we've got the regular council meeting minutes of March 18th. Could I have a motion to adopt as circulated?
So moved.
Seconded.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And the April 2nd regular council meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Business arising from the delegations?
Staff would recommend that council approve the audited financial statements as presented.
I move to accept the audited financial statements as presented.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
I would just like to thank the staff at this time, especially during the unfortunate busy year that we've had. It's really great to see that we're in good financial shape, so congratulations to you, CFO Martini, and just thank you to the whole organization for all the work that you've done on the audit, or preparing for the audit. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any business arising from the minutes?
We have to vote.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry, Andrew.
oh, you're kidding. Is that what I do now? On the motion,
Don't make me
all
laugh.
those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
I only cough when I laugh, so don't make me laugh.
Business arising from the minutes? Seeing none. Committee reports, economic development, Councillor Dubois. See you, Mario.
I'll defer to Councillor Diebert, who's in the room, to comment on the motions and the agenda items.
Okay.
There isn't anything.
Don't believe there was anything.
You have a meeting coming up on the
Yeah. 17th, I believe.
18th.
17th, 18th.
18th.
I forgot what day of the week it was too, but it's the Thursday the 18th.
Okay, not the 17th.
Wait.
Okay.
Now you have me second guessing.
Pretty sure it's the 18th.
It's the 18th? Thursday? Okay, there we go.
Okay, nothing there then. Budget and Administrative Services. We have the Growing Community Fund information. Could I have a motion to receive for information the Growing Community Fund information?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we have the Canada Community Building Fund, pages 24 to 65 of all things. Could I have a motion to receive for information?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Just thank you for
Councillor Peters?
thank you to staff for providing these. They were questions that we had asked. We had asked for this information to make our understanding of how these funds work a little more clear.
Yeah, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Bylaw and policy review, Councillor Ranta.
Okay, so I move that council give final consideration to and adopt bylaw number 6-005 zoning amendment 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And yes,
The next item 2, and I move the recommended motion on the agenda that council give first reading to bylaw number 2-015 5-year financial plan 2024.
Second.
discussion? I just have one item that at the bottom of page 70 of the agenda, it says the landfill legacy reserve will be used in 2024 to offset the shortfall in operations due to the 2023 freshet recovery projects. And I wish it wasn't quite so specific that we use the landfill legacy reserve. And what I would propose is an amendment to the language here, rather than have it say the landfill legacy reserve, have it say the reserve funds will be used in 2024. And then it's open enough that we can make a decision at some point in the future. And we may not choose to use the landfill legacy reserve. So I would propose that as an amendment.
I'll second it.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
sounds
okay.
very reasonable.
Any discussion?
You guys have any?
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. On the Village of Cache Creek financial bylaw as amended then, any further discussion? Councillor Ranta?
I have just a question kind of coming out of our previous meeting and our initiatives regarding the swimming pool. And just for clarification, that at this point, the 5-year financial plan doesn't include costs of any asset retirement of the pool, if that should be a choice in the future. So that could, if it does move ahead, which we have not determined yet, due to the audit or the assessment of the pool, which we're waiting for in order to
Appraisal.
proceed. Yeah, so just for clarification that this does not include those potential costs if that's determined to be something the council's going to move forward with.
Thank you. So, did we get a motion to give first reading to bylaw 2-015
As amended.
as amended?
Yeah.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Item 3, and I'll move the motion for item 3, that council give first reading to bylaw number 2-016, tax rates bylaw 2024.
Second.
Discussion? Am I correct in understanding that the residential rate is up 7% in this particular tax?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried?
And that brings us to item 4, which is on the next page of the agenda. council evaluation, and I'm bringing forward the idea that council prepare for a potential self-evaluation. We're approaching next fall the midway mark of this term of office, and I think it's best practice for organizations and boards and councils to stop and reflect on how their meetings are going, and if there's any good things to discuss and maybe any challenges to discuss, and then kind of create an action plan or not of the findings. And so in order to plan for that, I think the best thing to do is to propose a questionnaire that would be distributed to council, and then to develop that questionnaire as an assignment for a select committee. The other way of doing it would maybe be to have one of the existing committees take that under their wing as a little task to accomplish sometime between now and the fall, or even now in June, for instance. I would think that it kind of is something that might be able to be done by the policy committee, similar to, let's say, the code of conduct policy. We've kind of talked a lot about working together in groups through that policy development. I think the policy committee would be a good place to develop this, and potentially we could have the work done by the beginning of June, I think, on this. And that questionnaire, maybe we could even do a trial run of the use of it and see how it goes for everyone. Of course, we would bring the questionnaire to a meeting prior to the use of the questionnaire, or a different process if the committee determines that questionnaire isn't really the right thing. But I guess I'm really feeling it would benefit us to have a conversation about how the meetings have been going for everyone at the table, and ensure that we're addressing the positives, and maybe if there are any concerns, that we're doing that work together.
Thank you.
I move that council assign the policy committee to work on a structured method for self-evaluation of meetings within council.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Councillor Ranta. Public Works, Councillor Diebert.
Nothing to report at this time.
Thank you. Healthcare and Protective Services, Councillor Ranta.
I have some very, very exciting news, and I attended a HAWK meeting today, and we have a full-time doctor coming to the Ashcroft UPCC, Dr. Warwick, and that's really excellent. Hopefully that's a long position. They're also seeking 2 more doctors to come to Ashcroft, and super excited about this. That will mean that the UPCC combines the telecare model and the live doctor model, but continues to run 7 days a week. So not everybody will be seeing the live doctor, but it certainly is an improved it's kind of the dream coming true of having healthcare with a live doctor in the local area. And I propose that we send a warm letter of welcome to Dr. Warwick, and I have the spelling here, and that the council, on the behalf of the village of Cache Creek, recognizes how valuable their services are to the community and that sort of thing. So I move that we write a letter of welcome to Dr. Warwick.
Second.
Discussion?
Good idea.
On the topic, not so much the motion, do you know approximately when they think that the new doctor will be arriving?
Tomorrow. Starts work tomorrow.
Nice.
Well, that's quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, hopefully I'll get to meet him
So
when I
you
go in
can
there.
break a leg, but not on the way home today.
That's right.
So
Wait till
doctor,
the morning.
And you spell it Waraich.
Okay. I'll get that from you.
And I'll double check that one when I get home because it's not with me.
Thank
It's a
you.
long time coming.
You said W-A-R-A-I-C-H?
I believe that's correct, but I'll double check
Okay.
it when I get home.
Thank you, Councillor Ranta. Emergency Management, Councillor Peters.
Motion
Oh.
on the table.
We got a motion on the table
The-
again.
the
The
letter.
letter.
Oh, the letter.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Emergency Management, Councillor Peters.
I'd move the council receive and file the April 1st snow survey and water supply bulletin.
Second.
Any discussion? Councillor Peters.
Just that while the threat of flood is very low this year, we are still at Mother Nature's mercy should she decide to send down a substantial rainfall. Staff are continually monitoring snowpack levels, water levels, flow rates, and are continuing to take courses. I believe 3 of them are now taking courses, which is pretty cool. Alyssa has started taking some emergency management courses, as well as Alana and Damien on an ongoing basis. So we
Actually,
have
every person in the office
is okay, even better.
has level 1.
Yeah. So, you know, the more people that know what's going on and how things work, especially in an emergency, the better it is for all of us. So thanks to all of them for their hard work.
Thank you. Did we have a motion?
Yes.
Receive and file.
Yes.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Parks and Recreation, Councillor Ranta.
No report.
At this time.
Landfill Advisory Committee, we've got the post-closure care, cost care statement on page 102. I would move that we receive and file the statement.
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed?
David had
Oh,
some.
Dave.
David, yes, hello? Can't hear a word.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, can now.
Okay. I'm just wondering if there was any discussion or submission from the proponent about what the variances, the reasons for the different variances or anything like that. I think it would be good if we could get some sort of documentation to back up with those statements that we're getting.
Councillor Peters?
I believe that in our discussions with members of the proponent, they said that those things are hard to equate in a monthly statement, but that they would be developing quarterly statements for us, and at that time they would provide those explanations.
And I think we've got a meeting coming up with Russ
In
Black
May-
and the
at the end of
manager in
May.
May, yeah.
Yeah.
So will that meet your needs?
Lost him.
Lost
He
Oh.
just fell off.
He's,
Oh, there he
Yeah,
is.
I wanted to get information on what it all means. I find it very challenging to just look at a number and have an understanding of what's going on, that's all.
yeah, well, we'll be able to ask those questions when we meet with them in person.
Still there, Dave?
Yeah, I don't have any further comment.
Okay, thank you. So we've got a receive and file motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. TNRD and Intergovernmental Relations. We've got a proposed resolution for consideration at SILGA. And what I would propose is an amendment in the second whereas clause. And I would suggest that we include the words containing recyclables after the word waste, whereas the transportation of waste containing recyclables to the United States serves as a loophole. So when I read it, I didn't think it was clear enough what we were worried about. So I would propose that as an amendment and so move.
Second.
Any discussion? Councillor Peters?
Just to clarify for the public, council takes motions to SILGA that we think are important for not only our community, but for all of them in that group, and then those recommendations then go on to UBCM. The reason for this one is smaller communities like ours that have landfills are at a disadvantage when large communities can ship their garbage out of country for a much lower rate, and it takes income away from the property or the communities that do have landfills. And the main reason for that is because they are not subject to the same restrictions that our BC landfills, well, most Canadian landfills, but in particular BC landfills are subject to in regards to not only recyclables but hazardous wastes as well. So,
Yeah. Any further discussion on the amendment? On the amendment, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. On the proposed resolution for consideration at SILGA as amended, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Cache Creek Community Fund, Councillor Dubois.
Oh, he just dropped off.
Yeah.
'Cause
Or
he's right
com-
there. Sorry.
He's walking in.
Oh, he's
Caught me off guard walking in
he's
the door.
just here in time.
yeah.
Apologies for being late.
No problem. We missed you. We're on the Cache Creek Community Fund, page 104.
I'd like to make a recommendation that council approve the request presented by the Cache Creek Beautification Society.
I'll second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. On to staff report, small-scale multi-unit housing.
So
Pardon me?
I think it's the wind.
Yeah, I think it's the wind. Yeah.
That's what it was the first time.
this is the one that I asked for, correct?
There's,
Nope, this is just something
Okay.
that came on through.
It's the wind. I would move that council receive and file the report from CAO Couture regarding small-scale multi-unit housing.
Second.
any discussion?
I bel-
Councillor Peters?
I believe we already, previous council amended our our zoning bylaw to allow 4 secondary suites in the village. So the only difference that would make to us is, the big difference that it would make to us is duplex properties and the small dwelling units. So that might be a zoning amendment we'd have to look at in the future.
Yeah. Further to this, the village is mostly compliant with the rules. There's a couple little recommendations, nothing major. I've been actually discussing it at the same time with the representatives from True that are doing the floodplain draft. The big portion for us, I think, is perhaps the designation of hazard zones, which is kind of I don't know if everyone's going to be using that designation, but we might. It might make sense considering we're talking about floodplain mapping anyways. Certain areas that are identified as an extremely high hazard to flooding, even though they might currently have a single family dwelling on them, it may not be a good idea for them to look at having accessory dwelling units. So a separate structure on the same property that is its own dwelling. So that's kind of one of the things that I think might come up as a point of conversation to see if that's necessary. And it also has to come forward to council if that's even a conversation to be had, if council wants to allow accessory dwelling units, because it's not really something that's clear in the zoning. So we could clarify that, add that in, and put it in different places. So you could have one or the other in different sizes. Like there's a conversation still to be had on this, and then the conversation on hazard zones as well.
Thank you. On the motion to receive and file the report, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Bylaw Officer Quarterly Report on page 113.
I
Good.
move that council receive and file the quarterly report from bylaw officer Reggie Amiot.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And the Fire Smart grant application?
I would move that the Village of Cache Creek supports the application for Fire Smart community funding and is willing to provide overall grant management.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
I was-
Councillor Peters?
I was very happy to see the Fire Smart pamphlet or leaflet included with the information that was sent out. I think this is something that's really important, and I hope we do get this grant to have a coordinator who will, because staff capacity and fire department capacity we don't have to be able to make that program work well here. So having a Fire Smart coordinator would take that pressure off of both those entities and enable us to become a safer community. Logan Lake is a prime example of how Fire Smart works. In 2013, they became the first community in Canada to be designated as a Fire Smart community. And when the fires went through last year or year before last, the firefighters all commented on how much easier it made a difficult job be because of the preparations that they had already done.
Thank you. On the motion then, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Information correspondence. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items. I would move that we receive and file the items in information correspondence.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And under new business, I think we have the liquor store signage.
I thought I would request that it be brought forward in new business. Halfway through the day today, we received correspondence back from BC Liquor Stores, the person specifically working on their signage, and they responded and they were asking for a bit more clarity on what council's looking for in terms of signage. And so what is in the booklet here is some examples of what they've done in other locations. Specifically, there's one of the photos that shows the construction method of the signage. Yes, it's near the back, shows the construction of them. And you can see how they have the raised signage that would be the larger piece, likely up on the actual signpost. And then on the building, they would have a corrugated system with block lettering that's separate. And you can see on this photo kind of how it's raised from the rest of the structure, giving a cleaner look. They wanted to know if this is more what council is looking for, and if so, any critiques or points that they have, because they just weren't sure, based on the response back, what council wanted to see.
Councillor Peters.
I have lots to say tonight. I would suggest to them that when they have the letters like that, if they were to outline them in because as they sit on the building that shows, the picture that shows of the lighted building, the whole thing is just a lit background. But if that one, if you were to outline these in the neon-like LED, then that to me would satisfy it. Same with on the BCL with the wine bottle, if they outlined that in the neon-like LED as well, that to me would satisfy, in my opinion, my interpretation of the OCP.
Theoretically, just out of curiosity, would running LED through the channel assist the application? I'm just looking at this photo specifically. It shows the metal channel going through behind to create a backlight of the lettering.
So have like striping behind it. Is that what you're saying?
I don't think that's quite the same effect as
No.
what Councillor Peters is
Yeah.
contemplating, and I would suggest, I would agree with what Councillor Peter has outlined, with outlining the letters and the logos as a good outline.
And I mean, their colors are red and blue. I wouldn't want to presume, but if they were to do the outline in red and have the inner part lit in the white, it would satisfy their, because they have sign covenants, or they have the same signage that they use universally throughout their units, that would be a way to appease us without totally changing their sign layouts.
I can bring that forward to them.
I
Yeah.
just have a question.
Councillor Ranta.
I'm not really super, like, versed on signs in the graffiti era, but I think that's what we're trying to make it look like, is like a graffiti sign. Would putting a neon-like border around the entire sign make it look more like a graffiti sign, or is it mainly the lettering that we want changed?
I think the lettering change proposed by Councillor Peters would reluctantly satisfy us.
So if you look at the middle picture on the top, that would theoretically be rimmed, all the letters would be rimmed
Yeah.
with
Outline.
with neon outline. Thank you. The word wouldn't come.
Well, this one here, it's not exterior. These would be a backlit red box, and then the inner of the light would be white on
But
this sign.
it's a similar configuration of what they have on their signs.
And then I also have this one. They have tacos.
Oh, tacos, eh? Great.
Liquor and tacos.
We were looking at this earlier today when they made their request. That's why I had this just on my desktop.
Oh, yeah.
The second one down on the left would be another one, like if those letters were outlined.
Here?
No,
No,
on the
the
left.
country
That's
liquor.
the middle.
Country
up.
liquor.
There you go. That one. If those letters were outlined in the neon or neon-like LED.
LEDs.
I think it'd be cool for them to do something like that and then use it as part of their publicity. Just saying.
Yeah, they just want to do everything the same, I'm sure.
Yeah,
As
like there's a
every other
standardization
Yeah,
throughout
so
any
that they can go to
chains.
the same people that are making the sign and say, we need another one.
Yeah.
We just need to add this to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And really, the proposed change, in how I understand how things work, wouldn't be as, well, the bending, I guess, it would be more expensive, but.
Oh, I'm sure it'd cost a few bucks,
Yeah.
but they've got lots of money.
Yeah, and if we were to make an example of someone, a government entity would be a good one to make an example of.
Sure. So, I'd be inclined to mention to them our theme and the adopted sign proposal that's in the, whatever it's called.
Official community plan.
Yeah, community plan, official community plan. And indicate to them that council discussed their proposal and would be willing to accept the same signage if it's outlined in neon-like LED.
So when you say the same, you mean what was presented today?
So this sign,
Yeah.
for example,
Like the raised
would
sign.
be that sign if it was outlined
Yeah.
in
Right.
Red LED.
well, red,
Or-
but I think if that's asking a lot because you're asking them to change the whole configuration of their
Right,
sign.
right.
Whereas if we were to compromise with having it as a white neon outline or neon-like outline, it wouldn't necessarily need to have the backing lit, the back part of it lit.
My suggestion is if you do, I just went online, did a 1950s neon sign search, and they come up with some examples of how they do have the block letters that are colored, and then they have the neon outlining them, so I think if you were to,
Well, I think it would be good on the BCL portion of the sign to have that outlined in some kind of neon or LED light.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
and then the wine
And-
bottle in
and
red.
the wine bottle, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
or the bottle. I just call it a wine bottle.
Like if you look at the picture on the far right, the bar on the side,
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, have like a dimmer light on the inside
On the
and then
inside,
outline
yeah.
it.
There, we're saving them money and power.
That looks very familiar. Just a different angle. Anyways.
Yeah.
okay. So that's the new business, and do we need a motion on that?
I don't know,
I
I
don't
just
think so.
have something to add, because I actually prepared a small presentation to go with the financial plans and the tax rates, but
Yeah,
the way the meeting moved, I didn't get a chance, but I just want to mention that we are going to have a public presentation on April 24th at 6 p.m. in the community hall.
6 p.m.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other new business? Seeing none. Questions from the public? Thank you. Questions from the press?
I had nothing today.
Okay, we have a need to go to closed session pursuant to section 90.1 and 90.2 of the community charter. Could I have a motion to that effect?
So moved?
second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried?